I'm going to record this because I have sometimes people ask me, why are you recording these? And my answer always is, I have some friends that are insomniacs. There's a joke there, you have to wait for it.
You have to be one to know what that joke is.
Yeah, right. All right, so this is from a series that Keller Williams has called Lead Generation 36-12-3. And I'm uploading a video when I have a moment to after the class that I made yesterday, which is called 5 to Thrive. Yeah. And with 5 to Thrive, it comes from a study that was done of over 3,000 real estate agents that participate in various coaching programs. The agents that were doing the 5 to Thrive were on average making over $300,000 in gross commission. And the 5, you want to hear what the 5 things are? They're all in 5s. I don't know, I think I only have 4 of them. But anyhow, they're 5s. One of them is to spend 5 hours a week in active lead generation. 5 hours a week. Now that would mean 1 hour a day, right? But if you did it 5 hours a week, an hour a day, 5 days a week, it would start to add up. Another is to talk to 5 people a day and get them into your database. If you talk to 5 people a day times 5 days a week, that's 25 a week times 4 weeks is 100 a month times 12 months. There's 1,200 people. And if you assume that people buy and sell real estate once every, 15 years, which is a conservative number, that's 166 real estate transactions. And if you're not very good at this, and 90% of those people that you talk to will not use you as an agent, only 1 out of 10 will, that's 16 real estate transactions. And given that our average commission is between $20,000 and $25,000, you could probably live on that, right? Some of you would have to cut back a little, right, Brandy? But you could live on that. The other is to follow up with people 5 times. One of the things that they found was that agents, you understand if somebody constitutes a lead, there were some agents that said, I follow up with them once, some said 3, some said 5. The difference between, nobody said 4, I don't know why, but anyhow, the difference between the agents that were following up 5 times and the agents that were following up 3 times was $100,000 a year in income. All right. And 70% of all real estate business comes from following up. The final 5 was they were doing 5 open houses a month. 5 open houses a month. And hence today's topic, which is open houses. So we're going to, this comes from a course called Lead Generation 36-12-3. You know what those numbers stand for? Going back, I'll do it on left to right. 36 transactions in 12 months, but 3 hours a day of lead generation. Do you understand? 3 hours a day of active lead generation could produce 36 transactions. At an average commission of $20,000 to $25,000, we're now talking real money. Isn't that right? Isn't that real money? By the way, how many of you would say you're full-time in real estate? Or going to be? Going to be. We got people's hands are up. Does full-time mean 40 hours a week? No. What does it mean?
20 hours a week.
20 hours a week. That's honesty. So let's say you work 20 hours a week. Would it be a logical assumption that 80% of your time ought to be focused on the number one thing you ought to be doing? Would that be a logical? What do you think the number one thing a new agent or even a used agent, she always laughs. She always laughs. She's heard it like a dozen times, but I know it's coming. At least I get it. That's why I have her here. So 20 hours a week, if 80% of your time is spent on the lead generation, that comes out to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 16 plus hours a week. And if you divide that by 5 and round down, that's 3 hours a day. Do you understand? 3 hours a day of lead generation is an 80% focus of a 20-hour work week. I'm just saying. right? Many people that say they're full-time in real estate, I don't really know. I don't really know about that, right? Because for some people in real estate, if it were a real job, you understand, let's say you had a real job and you spent as much time doing the real job as you do doing the most important part of the real job as you do doing the most important part of real estate. Did that make any sense what I just said? You wouldn't have your real job, right? Do you understand? For most of us in the real estate business, if this were a real job and we were being evaluated by the amount of time we were focused on the one thing we're supposed to be focused on, we would be kicked out of our job. Isn't that right? Because so this isn't rocket surgery, is it? I have a slow connection. Isn't that nice? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed up the connection. I have, what happened to it? Michael Devlin Coaching, I'm going to, where happened to it? Michael Devlin Coaching, secured, connect. All right, I'm going to speed it up. Would you like to hide all webcams? Enter the code. I don't know, let me just do this for a second, and then we're going to talk about open houses. See if that. Just give me a second. I'm having a slow internet day. And I really don't have time to go get my. I hope this works. Why are you laughing at me? Do you have any news, Brandy, for us? No? Her license came in.
Yay!
Congratulations.
Oh, come on.
How long did it take to come in?
2 months. A long time.
Yeah. Seems like forever though, huh?
It's a really long time. And I called them like 5 times. Like, excuse me, because they took my payment over a month ago, but they never sent me anything.
Oh.
All right.
Yeah.
So let me just make sure. Good, you were breaking up, lost you. Am I back for those of you that are online? Could you tell me you're back, sort of? Can you guys hear me online? I just want to make sure. Okay, all right, sorry about that. I've switched internet connection. So let's move on. 5 open houses a month. Does that seem like a lot? No. All right. By the way, we're going to start with, I don't know if I want to do the story, this lead generation 36123, which, by the way, we're going to be going through in April, involves a variety of different ways. We're looking at pillars, and let me see, people are chatting. Let me just see what they're chatting about. No problem, yes, now. Okay, good. Sorry. Good. Cool. All right. So do you understand that really your real estate business is 2 businesses? One business is a customer service business, which is dealing with people that want to write offers, that need to show property, that you need to close escrows. And then the other part is the part that's a prospecting and marketing company, right? And really what you're prospecting and marketing for is appointments, which we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about open houses. Now, there's a question, are you at the open house to sell the house or to pick up buyers and sellers? Notice it says you are there to do both. How many people think that we do open houses to sell the house? Then we've got 1, 2,
Yeah.
of course, 3, 4.
Well, if it's your listing, definitely.
It's your listing, definitely.
You wanna-
So what percentage of the time do you think somebody comes into an open house and buys that house?
Oh, I think I know it. read it somewhere, 5%.
5% is probably a little less than that.
Wow.
So does it happen? I've sold homes because I did an open house. I've had listings where I did the open house and somebody was in the neighborhood driving around. They weren't looking for that area, but they were visiting a friend. They saw the open house. They thought, why not? And they went and looked at the house and they liked the house and they bought the house, right? So it's possible. However, one of the things that may seem ironic is I was coaching somebody a few years ago, and she had done an open house for another agent, and 3 people showed up at the open house and wanted to buy the house. And so her first problem was she had too many people wanting to buy the same house. Now, do you understand that you're not legally allowed to represent 3 buyers on the same house at the same time? Can anybody understand why that would cause a legal problem? Because if you're one of the buyers and you're one of the buyers, I know she's offering more money than you. Do you want me to tell you that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want me to tell her that? No. Right? Do you understand how could I, if I know all 3 offers and I know which one is the best offer and I'm working for the other people as well, I'd have to tell them, right? But then you'd be really unhappy. It would be selling you out. So do you understand? Her problem is that 3 people wanted to buy the same house. And by the way, my experience has been that way over 90% of the time when people come into an open house and say they want to buy the house, they do not buy the house. Right? Agents get all excited. Somebody wants to buy the house. You'll find I'm less excitable because I know that 9 out of the 10 times they don't ever buy that house. So it turns out what you would do, by the way, is you'd pick the strongest one and represent them and refer the other 2 out. And by the way, in that case, none of them bought that house. The other problem is they had no connection to you as an agent. Their connection is the house. Do you understand? You're not their agent. You just happen to be at the open house when they decided they wanted to buy it. So all 3 of them went on and they went on to other open houses, right? Where there are other agents that they were looking for somebody to represent. And so this agent who I was coaching came to me and said, I need to do more open houses. I need to do one where her focus was finding somebody to buy the house. Now, I told her that not only was it bad for her career that 3 people wanted to buy the house at her open house, the only thing that would have been worse is that if one of them had bought it and she had been paid, that would have been the worst result in my view as a coach. Because what it would have done is ingrained in her head that the reason I'm at the open house is to sell the house. Right? Do you understand? All it takes is to be paid once doing that, and you're saying, I get it. I'm here to sell the house. Right? Now, if most of the people are not going to buy that house, maybe we shouldn't sell it to them. Right? So do we know if they want to buy the house or not? Do we know if they can afford to buy the house? Do we know what they're looking for, right? Do you understand the idea is not to sell the house. However, sometimes you do, right? But that should not be your focus. Now, the National Association of Realtors says 44% of home buyers used open houses to gather information. 5% found their agent at an open house. 5% of sellers found their agent at an open house. Yes.
So this question, when you said that on an open house, maybe they have 3 buyers that they are interested to buy the house.
Right.
You as an agent in that open house, can you evaluate those 3?
Yes,
choose one of them.
you get them into the office.
They got to evaluate all 3
You
of
need
them.
right. You need to get them into the office and do a home buying consultation. You're going to find out that's the end result of what I think you're doing at an open house. See, what is the purpose of the open house? What is the goal of the open house?
To sell the house.
To sell the house, right? That's not I would say my goal of doing an open house is to set appointments with people that might want to buy or sell a house. That's the goal.
Can we do with all the 3 of them?
You can do it with all 3 of them.
Make appointments.
You can do it with 10 of them. The reality is 9 of them are probably not going to buy the house. They're bankrupt, unemployed arsonists. No one's going to make them a loan. They don't really like the house, right? You understand? The idea is to have appointments. Until we have appointments, we don't know what they want or what they can afford. So that's the goal of the open house, is to set appointments with people to go to the next step, right? How often do you think real estate agents write up a purchase agreement at the open house? Virtually never.
Very rare.
Virtually never. All right, but is it possible that we could find buyers and we could find sellers if we did open houses? All right. How much does it cost you to do the open house?
Very little.
Very little, right? You understand? So is this a way for you to meet people that are buying and selling real estate? All right. 100 buyers, 44 visit an open house, 5 use an agent from the house, 39 buyers leave the open house unrepresented or represented by another agent. So if you have 100 buyers, 44% of them use open houses. And 5% of them find an agent there. So if my rule of thumb was, if I did 3 or 4 open houses, I would conservatively say 4, I usually had a client. 4 open houses, I usually had a client. So if 40 out of 100 buyers, 44 come to the open house, 5 of them are going to find an agent at the open house. Is it possible for you doing 5 open houses a month to have 44 people come to it? Do you think that's possible? Right? If you're doing the one in Cupertino, it's possible to have that one day, one day. And then 39 leave, unrepresented or represented by another agent. All right? Does everybody understand the numbers here? All right. Now we're going to myth and truth. Open houses are only for new agents looking for buyers. Why not? You're mostly new agents looking for buyers. Right? Experienced agents gain leverage. I think there's another handout someplace. How are you doing, Roberta? There is another handout someplace. Is it? There's. I made 12. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there you go. Some of the agents, every year, Keller Williams has an event called Mega Camp. And at Mega Camp, they have agents, basically it's Gary Keller interviewing 5 to 7 mega producers. Now, in order to get on the stage at Mega Camp, you have to be doing somewhere between $2 and $4 million in commission income. Right, you understand? This is not mini camp. This is not average camp. It's not
1 year or
1 year. 1 year. And there's always a panel on open houses. And so these are people that focus on open houses as their primary lead generation strategy. And their team, these are usually teams, are doing $2-3 million in gross commission income. Does anybody know how you could find those interviews if you were so motivated?
YouTube.
They're not.
University or?
Keller Williams, if you log into, I'm going to move into the Keller Williams system before we're done today. How am I doing in time? I'm going to be moving faster. And I'll show you where you can find it, something called Agent Mountain. And Agent Mountain has the recordings of Mega Camp, including open house panels. So experienced agents are doing open houses. I don't have any listings, so I can't hold an open house. Other agents have listings. How many of you got my email about open houses, which had my scripts? Yeah. And it had the broker codes? Yes. And those of you for $5, I'll give you those. Yeah. So anyhow, I have some of my own scripts, which I'll upload, and a list of all the Keller Williams broker codes for our multiple listing service. Easiest low-hanging fruit is to find Keller Williams agents that have listings anywhere in Santa Clara County and ask them if they would like you to do an open house. Right, you understand? I at one point had 15 listings. Do you think I was doing open houses? No, you don't want. What I wanted to do, I'll tell you what a listing agent wants to do. You want to go away for the weekend, right? That's what you want to do, right? You want to go to Tahoe or Napa or something like that, and then come back Sunday night and find voice messages from the other agents that were working Saturday and Sunday, showing homes saying, I have an offer on your listing. Do you understand? That's the reason why we're going to talk about how to get listings, because you can do that if you have listings. So I didn't want to do the open houses. Sometimes I had to do the first one because they expected me to, but after that I did not want to do them. Do you think there are agents that feel just like that? Yeah, you've talked to some, haven't you? Yeah. So the nice thing about Keller Williams agents is they have the same logo we do. Does it have to be a Keller Williams agent you do an open house for? Not at this office, right? One of the agents here has done almost 7 transactions, all of which came from doing open houses at Coldwell Banker, right? If you're persistent, you ought to, like if you're going to spend 5 hours a week lead generation, doesn't that sound like a lot? 5 hours, an hour a day. What I would consider that would count to that is spending an hour a day calling other agents in Santa Clara County that have listings and ask them if you could do an open house. Right? Could you do the open house during the week? Does it have to be on a weekend? Friday night sometimes gets a lot of traffic, right? 4 to 6, right? And if you're doing an open house right now, is it possible that somebody could walk in and talk to you about buying or selling real estate? If you're sitting at home watching the Nature Channel, what's the likelihood that someone's going to walk in and talk to you about buying or selling real estate? Right? It's slimmer, I would say. Agents sit open houses. I've been in open houses where people were reading books and newspapers, watching sports on the TV, and they sort of grunt and, wave you on, right? By the way, these are the agents that will tell you, don't do open houses, it doesn't work, you'll never get any clients. The idea, so we're going to talk about this benefits of lead generation. I'm not going to read all the examples to you, but we're going to move into some of the specifics. Before, I'm on page 14. Prepare and promote. What are one of the things that you ought to know about before you do an open house?
Particulars of that house. What school district of it?
The school district particulars. I have to admit, when I was a new agent, I was doing an open house for somebody else. I was typical. I arrived late, right? Putting up signs, I was late. There were people waiting at the door, right? And I was having difficulty getting the lockbox to open, right? While they were watching, right? And so I opened the door, we walk in, and the first guy says, so how many bedrooms? And I said, 3 bedrooms, and we're walking, bedroom 1 and 2, and oh, there's a bonus bedroom, I guess. It had 4. I was busy, right? They asked me how old the house was. I didn't know. All right, what's the elementary school? I don't know. So would it be good to know how many bedrooms, bathrooms, what the square feet is, what the lot size is, how old, and schools? Would we want to find out what the schools were, know what the elementary school, the high school is, the middle school? Would we need to know whether or not those were good schools or bad schools? Would that be a good idea? Does anybody know a good way to find out if they're good schools or bad schools?
HomeSnap will tell you right now.
HomeSnap will tell you right now. RPR, the Realtor Property Resource, which is something you have access to through the multiple listing service, has a new report called the School Report. The School Report. It was somebody from an open house calling her. It's called the School Report, and if you put in the school, it'll give you this very elegant, complete printout on everything more than you ever wanted to know about the school. What else would you want to know besides the house? All right.
Environmental.
The environmental.
The neighborhood.
The neighborhood. Would you want to know what homes are selling for in that area?
Yes.
Would you want to have comparables that you could share with somebody as to why this house might sell at that price? By the way, on my listings, I generally had a binder in the house with all that stuff in it, because I knew that the agents doing the open house and agents showing the house might not know. Would I want to know what the median and average price is? What else would we want to know? Zoning, neighborhood. How about financing? Would we want to know what a typical loan on this house would look like? Would we want to know what a typical loan would look like? All right. And how would we find that out? Ask Mario, isn't it right? Ask one of a loan agent. During the open house, so a lot of it requires preparation, right? And to promote, we're going to go through this, build trust, afterwards follow up, be the #1 market agent. You prepared well, you'll become the go-to realtor. Prepare and promote. So we're going to set open house goals, decide which one, stage the house, prepare to build relationships. Some of this you don't have control over. So it would be nice for you to have a goal. Some of you that get my emails about coaching, my suggestion is that you set goals for how many appointments. One of the things I do in the coaching program is we work backwards. So depending upon what your income goal is, we need to determine how many appointments that would require on a monthly basis to reach that goal. So the rule of thumb is that you're going to need to have 50 conversations in order to get a client, right? Which, by the way, isn't too much. That's just a rule of thumb. And so you ought to have in your mind, my goal is to have so many appointments. My goal, and by the way, one of the conversations I had with a person recently was she was having difficulty closing for the appointment. So she would talk to people at the open house and they were sort of interested and yeah, that sounds good, but it was hard for her to book a time. And my question was that if you were really busy, let's say you were a busy real estate agent and you were heavily time blocked and you knew you only had a limited amount of time to meet with people, would you be more motivated to press somebody for a particular appointment time?
Yes.
Right? But if you don't have any appointments and you're not time blocked and you don't have anything in your calendar and you're not doing anything, then it's easier to become loose about what time you're going to meet with somebody. Do you understand that? But the goal of the open house is to get appointments. So we need to have conversations for appointments, and appointments are clients, and clients are contracts, and contracts is money. Is money. Decide which ones to do. If you have a pick, it would be better to have a recent listing that's underpriced in a high traffic neighborhood, right? But it would be better to do any open house than no open house. One of the guys that I coached at a different Keller Williams office, a listing from another Keller Williams agent that I knew in Santa Cruz came on the market in an area where one of the other people I was coaching farmed. That means it's a geographic target area that he had. And I called him up and I said, I have somebody that wants to do an open house. And I told him the address, and it was right in the middle of the area he marketed. I said, the problem is it's a pending sale. Now, what that means is somebody made an offer and the seller accepted it, but contingencies have not been removed. So the seller wanted another open house. And he said, no thanks, right? You know, it's been on the market a while. It's already pending. Again, you understand he's thinking no one's going to buy the house, right? You understand that when they find out it's pending, no one's going to buy the house. There's this other guy who we see on Facebook all the time, posting awards that he's won and things like that, who's also in my coaching program, and I called him up and asked him if he wanted to do an open house, and he said, absolutely. I explained it was pending. He said, I don't care, it's an open house. And he dresses very nice. He shows up early. He's super prepared. He knows what he's going to say. He was there the whole time. 4 people came by, right? And 2 of them had agents with them. And the other 2 were just, and so it's now 4 o'clock. It's been, no one showed up for an hour. He's closing up the open house to leave. He stayed right to 4 o'clock. He's now leaving, and some people, a couple are walking up the driveway, And he says, oh, if you're here to see the house, it's okay, I'll open the door again, I don't mind. And they said, no, we want to sell our house. We're around the corner. And he ended up listing the house and it sold. By the way, the agent who turned down the open house that was marketing that area was depressed for a couple of weeks. Right? Depressed. So you understand, if you don't have anything to do this weekend, you ought to be doing an open house for somebody somewhere. Even though, how many people do you need to come by to make it a worthwhile? One good person, right? By the way, can you make phone calls at the open house and do other things, right? So rather than Starbucks, you could do it anyhow. Stage the house, curb appeal. This assumes you have some control over the listing, right? Now, if it's my listing, and I may have one soon, that I would go to great lengths to get the outside looking nice. But you understand, if you're doing an open house for somebody else, you may not have this opportunity. Seller's home open house checklist. This is something I would go over if I were the listing agent. Make sure the home smells good. By the way, one of the things I used to give to sellers was a list of all the stuff I had in the trunk of my car. I had a box in the trunk of my car, and I had a bunch of stuff in it. And I had a list, and I would show it to sellers when I was on a listing appointment. All right. It had things like batteries and a flashlight and toilet paper, some obvious things. And one of them was aluminum foil and cinnamon were on my list. And I would show it to sellers, and they'd say, why do you have that? And I would take a piece of aluminum foil and put cinnamon on it and stick it in the oven and turn the oven on to warm, and the house smelled better. Do you understand? Moving along, prepare to build relationships. You have about 3 minutes with each guest coming through your open house. So you need to make a first impression. You need to move quickly. And by the way, I would suggest don't be greedy about doing an open house. And what I mean by that, if you believe that it's going to be packed, if it's a packed open house, you might want to get another agent to work with you. And then you should work out in advance what you're going to do with the leads. For example, you could agree that whatever leads either of you get, you're going to split. Or if I get them, and you get them. But you understand how that can lead to bad blood. If one person you're talking to somebody who's not motivated, and the other person gets to talk to the one who wants to list the house. But would it be better to have two agents at a crowded open house so that you have time to talk to people? Who, what, where, when? Some of you have seen I have questions that I would ask. Prepare to be the neighborhood and market expert. Should you know what the average days on market are? Should you know what the median price is? Should you know what price ranges are selling the best? By the way, I have a listing in Gilroy, and I know one of the issues is the price, and by the price, I don't mean that it's particularly overpriced. I mean that if you look at what's going on in that market down there, you see that there are a lot of FHA buyers. And the FHA buyer, how much is a maximum FHA loan? $625,500. So with a down payment, that could put them in the $675,000 range. And if the house is just a little bit over that, you understand, no FHA, right? So do you understand, would that be an important thing for you to know, whether or not the house you're holding open, you could get FHA, right? And there's a way, which I might do in another class, we're going to do 2 sessions, by the way, on open houses, right? I'm just saying, we're not going to finish this, obviously, today. But we're going to go through some specific ways of looking that up. There's a way in the MLS for you to see in that area what kinds of loans people are getting. Did you know that? Did you know that there's a way? You don't know that. You're just not. You don't have access to the MLS. All right.
We have other websites. Black Knight would provide that.
Other websites will, yes. But the MLS allows you to do
You have to
searches.
pay for it.
You have to pay for it. The MLS allows you to do searches. You can see how many all cash transactions there were in that area, how many FHA transactions there were. You could find that out. Would that be a useful thing to know? When you ask yourself the question, or I guess I'm asking it, why would a buyer want to work with you? Do you understand? Isn't that a logical question? Why? So now if you're there thinking they want to work with me because I'm connected to the house and they want to buy the house, that's not the best plan. So why would a buyer want to work with you as an agent?
You can get them the best deal.
You can get them the best deal. All right. So you have a system to get them the best deal. Thanks for that answer. So one of my questions always was, has anybody ever sat down with you and showed you how to negotiate the best deal possible in a market like we're in today? Has anyone ever done that? No. Are you serious about buying a house? If you're serious about buying a house, I suggest we do that first. Let's have a consultation. I will discuss. In this market, you need a strategy to buy anything. In order to get a good deal, you need a good strategy. Let's talk about that. What's another reason somebody might want to talk to you? What is it that you could show them you've got or know or have such that they would want to work with you as a real estate agent? Inventory. We all have pretty much the same inventory. However, one of the things I'm going to talk about is the mobile app. And the mobile app, which is branded to you, would allow people to see all the properties that are in the area. Right? That's something, but that's why they might want my app, not why they want to work with me. If you were a buyer, what would you want a real estate agent to know? I'm going to stick with her answer. Inventory, let me go with that. That would mean how many homes in the area have you seen? Those of you that have done an open house on my Dearborn listing, which is, I know, everybody behind you raised their hand. Yeah. Just so I'm not picking on Roberta. Roberta does a great job. How many active listings have you seen in Gilroy besides mine?
Not in person.
Not in person. By the way, that is the normal answer. How many active listings have you seen in the area of where you're doing the open house? And for me, for years, it was none also. Right? It was none also. But if I'm having a conversation with somebody and they're looking at the house and they're like, and I say, well, is this one going to work for you? And they say, no, it's not going to. Well, what is it that you're looking for? Well, we're looking for, and would it be better for you to say, on one hand, well, you know, you can go to my website and you can set up a search and it'll send you listings. Or would it be better for you to say, you know, I've seen that house. I know exactly what you're talking about. There's one over here. Why don't we, I'll be done at 4, why don't we meet? And I'll give you my mobile app so you can drive by and look at the outside and make sure you want to see the inside, and it'll give you information. But I know the home you're interested in. Market knowledge. That's really, inventory is sort of the same thing, but that's knowledge of the market. So if you're doing the open house on the Cupertino listing it's not my listing, but I seem to be in charge of open houses. The question would be, how many other Cupertino listings have you seen? How well do you know the market? Now, do you understand? I used to call this your immediate response inventory. How many homes in that area can you describe and drive people to right now besides the one you're standing in? And if the answer is none, the only one I know is this one, and I'm not even too sure how big it is, right? You know, I really don't even know this one that well. Do you understand that's a problem? Because if you're a buyer, would you want an agent who's seen the homes that are on the market in the area that you want to buy?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I pay her. I do. I pay her. What's the other thing that you would want a real estate agent to understand that would attract you to one? Besides knowing the market and besides having a script for finding a good buy. I'm not going to keep, how many of you have seen my open house, my flyer in Dearborn? What's on the back of it?
Lender.
Lender information. So does it have different scenarios? Would it be good for you to know what a typical loan would look like for somebody buying that house? Would that be a good idea? And maybe even what qualifications were required? So if somebody described their situation, you would have a rough idea as to whether or not they could even afford to buy that house. So if you met an agent that knew the market, knew real estate financing, and also was inviting you to come in for a home buyer consultation, would that be an easier sell? Would that be an easier sell? Right? Because you know stuff they would respect that you know.
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power. I've heard that someplace. It's from Bold, I believe. So one of the reasons that I tell agents that they're not doing well at open houses, they're not doing it right. They haven't prepared. They don't know, they get lost. If it wasn't for Google Maps or Waze, they wouldn't have found the house. Isn't that right? They wouldn't even have been able to find it, let alone describe what's going on in the market. Underprepared. Now, if you were really prepared for by the way, if I'm a listing agent, would I want to hear what you do? If you want to increase the number of listing agents that are going to give you open houses, make a list of what you do to get ready. Right? So if you call me up and you say, look, I want to do your open house, and this is what I do to get ready for an open house. This is what I'm going to go look at all the other homes in the area that people might be looking at so I can explain the benefits of this house compared to the other ones. I'm going to talk to the lenders to find out what financing would look like and who would be most likely to buy it. I'm going to know the market. I'm going to know the schools. I'm going to have school reports. I'll be able to, would that, do you think that might make me more likely to want you to do an open house?
Yes.
Because even in the seller, which some of you may have met, I don't know, the seller of the one I have in Gilroy is a tough cookie. And she would interview, if she showed up, she would start asking you questions. Right? I'm just telling you that. Right, yeah. Right, do you understand? Do you think that's what the seller wants? It's what the listing agent wants. Would it make you more effective?
Yes.
Now, assuming you're working a 20-hour work week, assuming you're spending an hour a day lead generation, is there enough time in a 20-hour work week to go preview homes that are in the neighborhood? Right? Would you want to know what homes are pending? What do they are like? Some of them you could see if they're pending with contingencies, and you'd want to know what homes have sold for recently. Does anybody know an easy way to find that information out for an area? It begins with an R and ends in PR. It's called RPR, the Realtor Property Resource. You can put in a zip code. It'll give you a neighborhood report, which has all the graphs and charts. You can do a market activity report. Guess what that gives you? Market activity, right? And you could like print out and have some copies available and maybe even read them so that you could talk about them. Prepare an information packet to give to prospects. How many of you have information packages that you could give to people talking about the area, your services, things like that? Right? Yeah.
You give them a map of open houses.
You give them a map of open houses so they can.
So they can see it.
Right.
They don't have it.
Do you have a personal services brochure? No. I'll share one. I have a one that you could use.
Okay.
I'll send it to everybody in coaching again. I think I have, but I don't know. Would you want to have a brochure you could give to people that explains the services you have to offer? I got some.
Yeah.
I got something of everything, right? Where could you find information about what you would do to help somebody buy a home? Keller Williams, KW.com, presentation guides. There's one for buyers. And some of it would be for a buyer consultation, but there's pages there that list services as well. Would it be nice to have a little information package you could give to people that maybe looks professional and impressive? I don't know. Buyers want to know community and neighborhood information, home buying process, schools, relocation, first-time buyers, mortgage information, Sellers also want to know market statistics. Is it possible that somebody that's 5% of sellers found their agent at an open house? Do you understand that? So should you have more than one packet? One aimed at somebody that might be interested in selling their home. All right. Be safe. This is another reason that sometimes it's valuable to have someone else. Every once in a while, the offices have, there's a guy that comes around who sells pepper spray and things like that. But would you understand, is this something to think about, right? One of the advantages of doing it with somebody else, I'm not going to go through all that because I don't want to scare you. And how are we doing today? We're going to do half of this and then we're going to do the other half next week. Those of you that are online and that are here, everybody that's in the coaching program, I'll send the email with the services brochure and the other stuff. If you're not sure, if you're in my coaching program and you send me an email to remind me, I'll make sure you get it. Prospecting. How do you prospect with the neighbors before an open house? Has anybody done any of that? You have?
Not personally.
Not personally. So what do?
You invite the neighbors for a neighborhood exclusive open house.
You can invite the neighbors for a morning special.
Maybe anyway.
Yes, but if you said 10 o'clock in the morning, my flyer used to say, "Are you a nosy neighbor?" I'm not kidding. And I had a graphic of some person peeking through. I know. It was, and I picked the image of a woman peeking over the fence because it seemed less threatening. It just does. I don't know. Are you So are you a nosy neighbor? And what I would tell the neighbors is that there was a special 10 o'clock a.m. refreshments will be served just for the neighbors. Secret, double secret, open house. Come on by. The owners will not be there. That's an important thing to say. You know you want to know what they did. You know you do, don't you? You know you do. This is a safe time to come and look. By the way, does that allow us to be prepared for neighborhood sales and for people that are potential sellers? All right. So could you go and knock on doors and make an open house flyer? Next week, I'm going to go through the nitty gritty, how to make an easy open house flyer, how to make a more complicated open house flyer, how to make an elegant open house flyer. But if you go and knock on doors and just say, "Hi, my name's Mike, I'm with Keller Williams Realty. We're doing an open house this afternoon or tomorrow at the Anderson Place around the corner. Just as a courtesy, I thought I'd drop by and invite you to come and take a look at it. All the neighbors are welcome. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Do you think you might want to stop by?" And they're going to say, yes, no, I don't know. What would we then ask them?
Anybody looking to buy or sell real estate?
How long have you lived here?
Okay.
What do you like about the neighborhood? Just to help me out with the open house, because I'm going to be talking to people thinking about moving into the neighborhood. What do you like best? How long have you been here? Why did you buy in this neighborhood? What would you say are the best things about the neighborhood? By the way, would those answers actually help you with the open house?
Yes.
And then if they say, "Well, we've been here 15 years, really?" By the way, I learned to say this without emotion, right? Without wiggling, without being nervous. I would just say, "So when do you plan on selling your home?" Right? Just, and they would just say, "Oh, I don't know, we've been thinking about it, well, maybe when the," right? By the way, would you want to be prepared for reasons that somebody might want to sell their home now rather than later? Right? Did you know there are 169,000 tech workers in the Bay Area working at technology companies that are losing money? Did you know that? Have you read articles about people in the tech industry moving out of Silicon Valley? I posted on my LinkedIn. If you're not connected to me on LinkedIn, you ought to be, because I post a lot of these articles there. Articles about the commercial market becoming looser now because tech companies are laying off, closing down, and moving out. In one of my next marketing piece, which Patrick isn't here because I was going to make him work on it, is I'm going to have a graph of what's gone on for the last 10 years with the up, the down, and the up. And the piece is going to say, if this were stock, you'd be selling it. Right? Does everybody get that, the point? If this was stock, you'd be selling it. Because the only time you know the market has peaked is after it's passed. Isn't that right? Waiting for the market to peak means you're waiting for it to pass. That's when you know it's peaked. So would you want to be ready to explain to somebody, if they say, we're thinking about selling maybe next year, is it quite possible that we could be in a very different market next year than we're in right now? We've been in an unusually heavy seller's market for a long time. Nobody thought it would last forever. It goes through 7 to 10 year cycles. Guess where we're at? Huh? We're at one of those cycles. Would you need to know that stuff? See, this is simple. Door knocking. Call everyone you know. By the way, one of the things that I learned about calling people that I know is that it was better if I had a house to talk about than I didn't. So what I mean by that is that if I just called you up and I said, hi, remember me, it's Mike, I'm in real estate, did you forget, do you happen to know anybody that's thinking of buying or selling a house? Because I really need the money. I really do. You got to know someone. Help me, right? Now, instead of doing that, and even if we don't use those words, is that how some agents come off?
Yes.
Yeah, you heard that. Yeah. So how about this? I'm doing an open house. It's a 5-bedroom, 3-bath house, 2-story. It's on Gilroy. It's under $700,000. It's got a master bathroom downstairs and upstairs. Do you understand this is in-law? It also has great potential for a rental. I happen to know that house can be rented out for more than the mortgage payment. So who do you know that's looking to move into something bigger or who's looking for an investment property with a positive cash flow? Now, if you wanted to plus that, you would say, of the people you do know, who's most likely to be looking for an investment property with positive cash flow or to move into something bigger? You understand the difference between those two statements or questions? The first one was, do you know anyone? Can they say no to that? No, I don't know. Of the people you do know, who's most likely to be looking for an investment property that can have positive cash flow? You understand that's not a yes or no. And it requires thought. And I learned that I was far more likely to get a name from somebody when I had something specific to talk about. Right? Does that make sense? Could you send out an email that says open house to the people that are in your database? Does Keller Williams have a system for sending out emails to people in your database saying you have an open house? A sample information packet. Oh, that looks nice. An agent information, property highlights, year-to-date citywide MLS statistics or that zip code. Current neighborhood statistics, RPR. Story about the neighborhood history. Where would you find that?
Google.
Google will then send you to a site that has a little bit about everything. Begins with a W, I, K, I. Wikipedia.
Well, sometimes those little municipalities have their own websites.
Sometimes they do. Wikipedia would have links to them.
Sometimes, yeah.
Right. So does the city of Gilroy have community links? Do you think there's a history in Wikipedia about Gilroy? Right. Is that true for San Jose, do you think? So you could have, and by the way, if you're doing an open house in Willow Glen or Blossom Valley, do you think you could find information about, well, why is it called Blossom Valley? I don't see any blossoms. What else? Marketing. So we're going to do, how far do I want to go? I'm going to do a little more, and then we're going to take a break, which means we're going to stop until next week. And then next week, we're going to talk more about open houses. There's going to be something of a homework assignment. Yeah, I know. Marketing, passively attracting leads. Well, passive means waiting for them to come to you. And by the way, the thing that I'm going to post when I have a moment that I did yesterday, I talk about attraction marketing versus prospecting. And attraction marketing, those of you that have studied the DISC profile, D-I-S-C, right? And if you've never heard of that, you might want to Google search D-I-S-C, DISC profiles. D's and I's are generally better at prospecting because their D's is a driver. They just want to go knock on doors and talk to people. Right? They don't want to waste time. I's, which are influencers or are more outgoing, they want to go knock on doors because they get a chance to talk to people, right? So they're more likely to actively reach out. S's, which are sort of a supportive style, and C's, which are sort of analytical, are much more wedded to attraction marketing. In other words, they're less likely because of their personality style to want to knock on doors. Right. And by the way, I've learned that just because I don't want to knock on doors doesn't mean everybody I meet doesn't want to. Right? There's I met people who say, I had several jobs where I knocked on doors. It was the best job I ever had. It was fun. I got out and got to talk to people, and hardly anyone ever slammed the door in my face. It was wonderful. I got to have a nice conversation. They're like, I want to do it. Right? Oh, good. Right? I already know what personality style they are. Right? And then there are other people that I don't know how to do it. Right? I don't want to. They may not like me. They may, just shut the door. They may not be nice. I don't want to do that. Right? So passive is attracting people without us having to put ourselves out to talk to them. The most obvious one is open house signs. What else could you do to get people to come to an open house? Begins with C and ends in Craigslist. What?
Advertise on Craigslist.
You can advertise on Craigslist. What else could you do? Flyers in the neighborhood, that's true. Postcards,
media.
social media, thank you very much. Could you create an event for the open house? How many of you have seen some of the postings that I've done for the open house in Gilroy? Only the people in Gilroy. By the way, I am going to show you how to do that. How to take any listing in the MLS and how to do an open house listing on it. And I probably have a dozen people that have registered on my website that are looking at homes from my website because of the social media marketing I did for the open house in Gilroy. And by the way, none of those people actually came to the open house. But they saw the ad and they clicked on the ad, and because of the system I had set up, where I sent them to the My Keller Williams site, the same one you have, those of you that have the site, and they registered on the site and they set up searches. And I can see that they're searching and they're looking at homes, and I put them on a campaign. So that can work, can't it? And you have to adopt the right, this is a big event. The bigger of an event you make it, the more people you invite, the more likely balloons and clowns and baristas and I don't know about all that, but sending out just listed cards, these are all passive. And competitor has dominant market share. Your listing, what is this? You have one sign in the neighborhood, you're listing, the competitor has several listings that appears to be the dominant agent in the area. Look what happens when you hold an open house. Now who has dominant mind share? I don't know. You have a listing, and you put your directional sign. By the way, one of the things that you should invest in is a whole bunch of open house signs. A whole bunch. Because even if people don't come to the open house, they can see your signs. I used to let agents borrow my open house signs. And I'd be sitting around on a Sunday doing something, and my phone would ring, and there was somebody who wanted information about the house. And I'd say, oh, which one is that? And the way I got the call is a new agent had borrowed my open house signs, which has my phone number on it, and they had put them up all over their neighborhood. Isn't that nice? Right? Some people, I knew I would lose open house signs, but I knew that occasionally I was going to sell a house because I gave somebody my open house signs. Right? What's the other thing we could do? Should we let agents know that you're doing the open house? Now, this would be more if it's your listing, right? When we get to marketing a listing, but we could let agents know as well. And you should have your own. And by the way, my suggestion, and then we're going to cut this short, or I think we're way past cutting it short, aren't we? We're cutting it long. My suggestion always is that you pick a geographic area you want to specialize in when you're getting started. I was being interviewed over the phone from somebody that wants to sell. He has a referral for 95139 listing. You'll know after I know. And the questions he was asking me were things like, how long have you been in real estate? I think that was his first question he asked me. And I have a good answer for that. I have a really good answer for that. It was a really long time, more than he had been in real estate. Right? So he was happy with that. Where was I going with that? So the area that the listing is one that I used to work at an office that was in that area. But I don't know all of San Jose or most of San Jose or much of San Jose. You understand there's a couple of zip codes in San Jose that I know really well. I could tell you what the builders are and things like that, but most of San Jose I couldn't do that. You understand you can't know Santa Clara County, right? Even agents that have been around a really long time, they don't know Santa Clara County. So it would be better for you to pick an area that you're going to focus on. Would it be easier if every open house you did was in that area? Would that make it easier? So if you do an open house in Gilroy, and then you do an open house in Cupertino, and then you do one in Milpitas, and then you do one in Santa Clara, and then you do one in Campbell, do you understand? You might have the view, well, I'm going to learn everything eventually, but the reality is you never become good at any one of them, right? But if you're interested in working a zip code, and you made sure that every time there's ever a listing in that zip code, you called the agent up and asked if you could do an open house, and you got open houses, and you kept doing them in that zip code, would you pretty soon become pretty good with that zip code? You'd have seen the homes that are on the market, saw the ones that are pending, saw the ones that have closed. Do you understand? Seeing the ones that have closed is a higher level of market knowledge, because anybody with a key can go look at the ones that are active. But if you saw them when they were active, when they're not active, you have market knowledge that other people can't get just from driving around because you started earlier and invested more time. Does that sound like? All right, so what we're going to do, and we have somebody's questioning me, what is a reasonable price for an A-frame sign with the agent's name? Google search Keller Williams open house signs. And you're going to find that there's a wide variety. The ones I've got down in Gilroy are heavy metal signs. You hit one of my signs in your car has problems, right? Some of them, you've seen them. My signs do not get blown over, do they? They do not get blown over. Then there are the cheap plastic ones that are very light that you can carry. Some of them are not that cheap, but you're going to find a wide variety of signs. I needed the exercise, so I got the heavy metal one. Google search Keller Williams open house signs. It looks like $80 sound right. I think you can do less than that, 60 or even less. Yeah, but anyhow, that would be a research assignment. All right, that's it for today. This Thursday, we're doing a team meeting, so there's not going to be a class. I'm doing a session in San Carlos on Wednesday. I sent that to everyone on building leads from business to business referrals, which is an underutilized part of the market. It will be broadcast. You're welcome to come to San Carlos at 2 o'clock. I'll be there. And next Tuesday, we're going to finish open houses, and we're going to spend, April will be lead generation month. You realize that 70% of all real estate transactions in Santa Clara County happen between April and through August. That 5-month period accounts for 70% of all real estate transactions. Now, is the time to do stuff. Right, we were waiting for Brandy to get her license. She's ready, aren't you? All right, that's it. Thank you, guys.